"Who have you put on me?" Frank said indignantly when Anabela was discharged from the maternity ward. On the day of the birth, the man was on another business trip. A busy man who always has a lot to do. Anabela got used to it over the years of their life together. She was a student, and he was a wealthy and important man. So she always dreamed of a husband like him, to be by his side like behind a stone wall. But that day it seemed like the wall collapsed. Frank was shocked when he saw the newborn. "He doesn't look anything like me." He was indignant. "What nonsense are you talking?" Anabela was astonished by these accusations. She had been faithful to her husband from the first day of their acquaintance. For her, there were no other men. Anabela dreamed so much of giving him a son that she was ready to sacrifice even her studies and career. The girl's mother was not thrilled with her choice. "Why would you want a divorced and adult man with a child from his first marriage?" Eliza asked her daughter. "Find yourself a young man of your age and live happily." "I don't understand you." But the woman had no choice but to reconcile. Anabela stood firm on her position. The girl was convinced that Frank was her destiny and that only with him could she truly be happy. Eliza communicated with her son-in-law, albeit reluctantly, which was absolutely understandable. He was suitable for her as a husband in terms of age, and he took her daughter to the registry office. What a mother would rejoice! But Anabela was happy and immediately after the wedding moved into her beloved husband's large house. The first years they lived happily. Anabela continued to study medicine. Eliza had always dreamed of her daughter becoming a doctor. She herself couldn't fully realize herself. She gave birth early, was forced to raise her alone, as her boyfriend left as soon as he found out about the pregnancy. Anabela never saw her father and missed the male support very much. Deep down, the mother understood why her daughter chose such a husband. She seemed to compensate for the paternal care she lacked so much in childhood, love, and support. Alongside Frank, Anabela felt safe and calm. Like any good wife, she dreamed of giving her husband a son. And 2 years into their married life, fate offered her this opportunity. How happy she was when she found out she was pregnant. But Eliza's mood darkened like fog. "But what about Anabela's studies?" she asked anxiously. "I hope you're not planning to give up college. Don't even think about it. It's not just any university. You struggled so hard to get in there." In her mother's words, there was a dose of truth. Anabela had worked hard for several years to prepare for exams. The girl had a very difficult pregnancy. Of course, she didn't intend to drop out of college. "But it can be completed after maternity leave," she replied to her mother. At that moment, Anabela was not interested in anything other than the child. The future baby was the only thing that mattered to her. And no matter what her mother said about not rushing, Anabela didn't listen. "By the time I finish college, it will already be a few years." The young girl wondered, knowing that she wouldn't settle for just one child. "And I still have to give birth to the second and third. When do you think I'll do that?" Eliza's tendency toward large families scared Eliza, who had always believed that a woman should have as many children as she can raise without a husband. This is what she taught Anabela. But all her lessons and advice were in vain. The woman painfully observed what was happening in her daughter's life. And when her husband pointed to the door, she became very uncomfortable. "How could you treat me like this?" the woman asked indignantly, sure that her daughter could not cheat on her husband. "I immediately told you what kind of person he is. You shouldn't have gotten involved with him. But you didn't believe me and did whatever you wanted. Now you're paying for it." At that moment, Anabela was not interested in her mother's advice and reproaches. She was shocked by the scandal her husband had organized. The poor girl didn't expect him to be capable of such a thing. She will never forget the words spoken to her on the day of discharge from the maternity ward. Anabela hoped so much that he would be happy when he saw his son and would carry her and the baby in his arms. But instead, she listened not only to reproaches but also to insults that deeply hurt her, breaking her heart. "Get out of here, adulteress," Frank shouted. "How could you cheat on me behind my back? I gave you everything, absolutely everything. Would you have lived in the same luxury with one of your colleagues as with me? You would have led a miserable existence until you finished your shitty school. And then you would have worked like a servant in the hospital for peanuts. You're not capable of anything more. And now you brought a stranger's child into the house. And do you think I will tolerate all this?" Anabela tried in vain to convince her husband that babies don't always resemble their parents. "Do you have a daughter yourself?" Anabela said. "You saw her on the first day after discharge from the maternity ward. And she wasn't a direct copy of you. But that's nonsense. Children grow and acquire facial features of their parents. You should understand that because you're not a child. My daughter looked like me from the first day of birth." Frank argued. "I see the difference between your son and my daughter in childhood. It's like night and day. And don't try to deceive me. I know what I'm saying. Pack up your things and leave my house. And don't count on alimony. I won't give you any money. Think about it, Dennis." Anabela pleaded. "I love you. I'm faithful to you. I can't imagine life without you. You're everything to me, my whole world. A son was born with you. If you don't believe me, you can have an expert examination. It won't cost you anything. Why are you so stubborn?" Frank didn't even try to listen to Anabela. He had made up his mind that she was unfaithful, and no one could convince him at that moment. The poor girl had no choice but to pack her things and leave with the baby to Eliza's. She had nowhere else to go. Anabela left her husband's house the same day. She didn't want to be near him, not even for a second. "Mother, I was so foolish," the girl sighed. "Please forgive me." "Enough of crying," Eliza said sternly. "Since you gave birth, you have to grow up. And for you now, the most important thing is not just the baby, but the college. The child needs a lot. And nothing falls from the sky. So you have to continue your studies. And with the baby, I'll help you. That's what mothers are for, to help their young and inexperienced daughters in difficult situations." Anabela was very grateful to her mother. She would never have succeeded in life without her help. If the woman hadn't taken on almost all the responsibilities of caring for the baby, Anabela wouldn't have been able to finish college. Eliza managed to take care of her grandson and work at the same time. Frank, whom Anabela adored so much when she was head over heels in love with him, kept his word. After the divorce, the man left his wife and child with no money, abandoning them to fend for themselves. Anabela went through a very difficult divorce. The poor girl couldn't fit the idea that her husband could do this to her. She loved him so much. She wanted to spend her whole life with him. But he simply trampled on her feelings and threw her away like an unnecessary thing. And all because of pride and stupid and useless doubts and suspicions and unfounded jealousy. Frank was a very jealous person by nature. His relationship with his first wife broke up precisely because of this. But the man was cautious, so when he met Anabela, he didn't tell her about the reason for the divorce. "I said something stupid about money, and the naive fool believed it." If Anabela had known then that the man was pathologically jealous, she would have hesitated 100 times before tying her destiny to him. But she didn't know, and she didn't even suspect. At the beginning of the relationship and throughout the first few months of marriage, Frank behaved very politely and attentively. He took care of his wife, bought her expensive gifts, and seemed perfect to Anabela. But life put everything in its place, and it's good that this moment came. Living in ignorance and not understanding what kind of person is next to you, what could be worse? With the appearance of their son, Lisa's life changed a lot. In the first few months, as befits a good mother, she didn't leave the child's side for a second. And when he grew up and started going to kindergarten, she returned to pursuing a higher education. She tried her best to finish college among the best. An impeccable degree, although it does not guarantee a job 100%, significantly increased the chances of finding a decent job. You have to remember that your studies don't end here. You have to become not just a doctor, but a good doctor, one of the best. Otherwise, why bother doing all this? She remembered this. And how could it be otherwise? It depended not only on her own well-being but also on the fate of the child. How much will Anabela be able to achieve in her profession? She couldn't even imagine how many financial costs are necessary for a child. When Anabela lived with her husband and was sure he covered all the family expenses and even more, she didn't think about it. Money, in general, had secondary importance for Anabela. But that only lasted until she became a mother. The girl did not expect at all that she would have to learn to count every penny. Yes, Eliza helped us both with the child and financially, but that couldn't continue indefinitely. She was paid little, she was not young anymore. At some point, her family even had to dip into her savings, something she promised not to do under any circumstances, to save for retirement. But what don't you do for a child? For her beloved and only, Eliza was ready to do absolutely anything. As soon as Anabela found her first job, she stopped taking money from her mother. From time to time, Eliza bought us something just for her grandson. Her daughter lived modestly, denying herself everything and giving all her salaries for the benefit of her son and the family. Years passed, and Lisa's life gradually changed. The director of the hospital where she was immediately employed after graduating from college saw her potential from the first day. The woman contributed in every possible way to Lisa's career advancement. She understood how difficult it was. She had once been in the same difficult situation herself. The fact that you became a mother early is correct, Jeanette said. But you will have time to build your career. How old are you? Anabela was grateful to the woman for such support. That meant a lot to her. Being a single mother with a child in her arms, Lisa didn't like at all the idea of surviving her whole life on a meager salary. No, it wasn't that she worked because of money. Not at all. But she had to support her son, whose expenses increased every year. It's time to start preparing for school, Eliza said when the boy turned 6. We need to enroll him in a year. And my nephew is not ready for that at all. It will be hard for him. This and other issues require immediate resolution. All her miserable savings. Anabela spent them that year on private tutors for Davis. Only after a year, when she finally accumulated enough work experience to qualify for a promotion, the family's financial situation began to change. Understand on your own beforehand, there was no other way, Jeanette said as if justifying herself. You're so young. I understand you have huge potential. But work experience is hugely important in our field. Of course, I understand everything you're saying, Anabela replied. You're not obligated to explain anything to me. Anyway, I owe you. I'm so grateful for your help and support. It's so important for both me and Davis and our entire family. You've done so much for us. She was ready to go on and on. Enough. Jeanette interrupted her, not liking it when people gushed in front of her. Everything's fine. You deserve this promotion. Now the most important thing is not to disappoint the expectations and to justify my trust. Of course, I will do everything conscientiously as I have done so far. I will put my head down. I promise. I won't let you down, Anabela assured her and kept her word. The reviews about the young surgeon's work were so positive that sometimes Jeanette seriously wondered if Anabela was being flattered by patients and colleagues. But in the stories about Lisa's work, there was no trace of flattery. She truly was a godsend as a doctor and always fulfilled her duty honestly. Even when he appeared at the woman's doorstep, not a muscle trembled. She politely greeted him and invited the man in to talk. His visit was an extreme surprise to her. And when Frank, upon seeing the initials of the doctor recommended to him as the best surgeon, at first didn't believe it. Maybe it's a coincidence, he thought to himself. Nobody knows how many people with identical surnames exist in the world. But when he entered the office, he understood it wasn't a coincidence. He recognized her immediately. In all these years, she hadn't changed much. "Hello, Anabela," he said softly and walked towards the table. The meeting was strange and under quite sad circumstances. For a year now, the man's daughter had been ill. Neither he nor his ex-wife understood what was happening with Kate and what they could do to help her. They visited several clinics, went to many doctors, but it didn't yield any results. They all unanimously said the girl was doomed. The surgery was too risky, considering Kate had other health issues associated with the illness. "I'm very sorry that your daughter is in such a terrible situation," Anabela responded, listening to the man. "But you must understand that problems cannot be solved just by discussions. Kate needs to be examined and it needs to be done as soon as possible. Why didn't she come for the consultation today? Why did you come alone?" "She's feeling unwell," Frank said. "She can hardly get out of bed. If they told me that you are the best surgeon, one of the best, then they probably weren't lying. Will you help me? I'm ready to pay any amount." Throughout the years, he hadn't changed at all. He still believed that all problems could be solved with the help of banknotes. Even regarding his daughter's treatment, Frank exclusively discussed it in the context of money. "You know I'm not a poor man," he continued. "I'm telling you honestly, I'm ready to do anything just for my daughter to be alive. I'll do everything in my power for her to get well and to continue enjoying life, to become again as she was before." About his son, he didn't say a word. As if Davis didn't exist at all. But at that moment, Anabela didn't think about old resentments at all. She's a doctor and is obliged to help anyone who approaches her. And in this situation, she will do everything in her power for the girl to regain her health and joy of living. But it was very important for the woman that Frank understood that not everything depended on her. Lisa didn't like at all to be blamed afterwards, so she tried to avoid it by discussing with the man all the nuances beforehand. "Yes, I understand," he sighed. "They all told us that, absolutely all the doctors. I understand everything. But maybe something can be done for her. My ex-wife has already lost all hope. I'm at my limit. I can't even imagine how I'll live if my daughter won't be anymore." Frank's words hurt Anabela. But she kept her feelings under control and waited for Kate to come for the consultation like an ordinary patient. After the examination, the girl had the necessary tests done and left the hospital with her father. The results were ready in a week, and Anabela conveyed to the man that she was ready to perform the surgery. "Are you sure?" he asked. "And what if something goes wrong? And if my daughter won't survive the surgery?" "I believe we should try," Anabela replied, indicating to Frank that she wouldn't tolerate any compromise. "And what do you want? To leave everything as it is? It won't be any better that way. You have to understand that." With a heavy heart, the man agreed with Anabela. On the day of the surgery, he came to the hospital with his daughter and didn't leave her until it was over. "Can I see her?" he asked when Alina came out of the operating room. "I want to talk to her." "Frank, are you acting like a little child?" Anabela responded irritably. "What do you want to see her for? What do you want to talk about? She'll still be asleep for a few hours after the anesthesia. The surgery went well. Your daughter will be transferred to the ward tomorrow. Only then can you visit her. And now go home, rest. You look terrible. That was true. The man hadn't slept all night. Disturbing thoughts swirled in his head, replacing each other and not giving him peace. At that moment, he decided to listen to Alina's words, although they were absolutely contrary to his life principles. A year earlier, before his daughter's illness, if he had been in such a situation, he would have been upset that he had to stay in the hospital hallway for a few hours and wasn't even allowed to see Kate. But now he understood that such behavior wouldn't bring any benefit. His daughter's fate was in the hands of the doctors and God. At that moment, for the first time in his long life, Frank believed in God and asked for help. He had nothing else to rely on. Only God's support could help his daughter survive. Nothing else. Arriving home, he collapsed exhausted on the bed and immediately fell asleep. The man didn't even notice how it happened. He was so tired that it seemed like he had slept for more than a day. In fact, only a few hours had passed. Waking up, he immediately started preparing to go to the hospital, and after half an hour, he was already there. "Can I see my daughter?" he asked the duty doctor. It was night outside. But in agitation and nervous tension, Frank paid no attention to that. He couldn't even admit to himself that he didn't look at the clock. He didn't even notice that it was dark outside. The only thing that interested him at that moment was Kate. By then, the girl had opened her eyes, but her father's visit was very surprising to her. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Kate asked when the man entered her room without knocking. "It's night. Why did you come? And how were you allowed to enter?" "I'm sorry, are you sorry?" Frank murmured guiltily. "Did I scare you? I just couldn't stay at home not knowing. I wanted to know how you are, how you feel to see you." The man had always financially supported his daughter from his first marriage. But their emotional relationships developed only after Kate fell ill. Until that moment, the girl often blamed her father for the divorce from her mother and didn't take him seriously. Frank understood the value of family only after being completely alone. The man suddenly realized how terribly lonely he was. And he wanted so much love and support, a real family that he had and that he destroyed with his own hands twice. Waiting for dawn, he said goodbye to his daughter, with whom he spoke for a few hours, and headed towards the exit of the room. Taking a few steps down the hallway, Frank bumped into Anabela, who was very surprised to see them. "What's new? What are you doing here?" she asked. "I didn't allow any visits." "Who let you in?" "Don't be upset," Frank whispered, crying. "I made a deal with the duty doctor. Just don't reprimand him. Anabela understands. I had to see my daughter and make sure everything is okay. Let it go. You came, visited her, checked that everything is okay. Be content." Passing down the corridor, the woman disappeared into Kate's room and stayed there for about half an hour. Frank decided to wait for her. He wanted to thank Alina for the successful surgery and ask for forgiveness for the past. The man felt guilty for treating her so unfairly many years ago. It was time to cleanse his conscience, and Frank wanted to do it here and now, without wasting a second. The man couldn't even imagine the surprise of destiny waiting for him in Anabela's office. When he saw her, he was shocked. "Again you?" Anabela sighed, seeing Frank near her office. By that time, he had already managed to wait for the delivery of flowers and held behind him a thick stack of banknotes with which he used to thank everyone who helped him. "What do you want?" "To talk," he replied. "I have to tell you something very important." "Fine," Anabela agreed. "Just make it quick, I have very little time." Opening the door skillfully, she gestured, inviting him in. The conversation was awkward. Frank didn't know where to start, and all the words he had prepared beforehand seemed to fly out of his head as soon as he stepped into her office. The conversation that hadn't even started was interrupted by the entrance of an 11-year-old boy into the office. "Mom, I've been waiting for you for half an hour," he said indignantly, puffing up his cheeks. "And I called you on your mobile, but you didn't pick up." That day, Anabela didn't have any surgeries or consultations scheduled, and she had agreed with her son to go to the movies. She spent so little time with him that she felt guilty. Seeing the boy, Frank froze in shock. For several minutes, the man couldn't say a word. "My son," he whispered, breaking the silence that prevailed in the office. "Son." "Mom, who's this uncle?" the boy asked. "And why is he whispering?" "And indeed. Why? Tell your son how you accused his mother of adultery and abandoned him and her to fate. Tell him, don't hesitate." Anabela thought to herself. But she stopped in time and remained silent. Anyway, she still loved him and was faithful. Frank was the only man she needed. And after so many years, this hadn't changed. Yes, Anabela was very upset with him, and it took her a long time to accept and forgive him. The woman was very offended by the fact that Frank acknowledged Pavlik as his own only when the boy grew up and became just like him, 2 drops of water. How regretful his act was. How he feared that Lena would never forgive him and that nothing could be turned back. He also continued to love her all these years, desperately trying to reconcile with a betrayal that didn't actually exist. He invented it, fearing to lose a dear person, afraid that Anabela would love another man again and leave him. And that was so stupid that Frank laughed at himself. However, his fear almost tore apart the life of his beloved woman and his son. And he thanked fate that it gave him a second chance. That was another precious gift after saving his daughter. And the man didn't truly understand what he deserved, but he thanked the universe every day, waking up early in the morning and falling asleep late at night.